thought I had found my forever, a loving husband, a loyal best friend, and a life I fought to build. But one night, a whispered phone call shattered every piece of trust I ever held. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just listened. Because what I heard wasn't just infidelity, it was betrayal on a level I couldn't begin to comprehend. This isn't just a story of heartbreak. It's a story of manipulation, double lives, and what happens when love turns into a weapon. Part 1 will leave you questioning, how well do you really know the person sleeping beside you? Part 1, the smile that lied. My name is Natalie Burns, 34, interior designer. I've always believed in order, in symmetry, in things being where they should be. Maybe that's why I fell for Adam. He was calm, steady, predictable in all the ways I craved. We met when I was 25. I'd just landed my first big client. He was handling their PR. Our first conversation wasn't fireworks, it was ease. And sometimes that's what you want when life's been chaos. We dated 2 years before he proposed. Classic ring, classic dinner, classic man. Our wedding was modest but beautiful. My best friend Rachel cried harder than anyone else. She always said Adam and I were the dream. Stable, safe, forever kind of love. If only I knew what was really growing in the shadows. The first year was bliss, mornings with coffee and playlists, evening walks with no destination. We danced in the kitchen. We argued over silly things like which side the mugs should face. But love made it all feel warm. Rachel was a constant presence. She'd come over often, especially when Adam worked late. She was like a sister. When my mum passed, she held me through it. I trusted her with everything, my grief, my secrets, even my insecurities about starting a family. When I had my first miscarriage, it was Rachel who stayed in the hospital with me while Adam took a work call. She told me not to blame him. He was processing it in his own way. But I remember something that day, a moment that didn't sit right. She touched my shoulder and said, "Some people just aren't built to be parents, and that's okay." It hit me sideways, not comforting, not cruel, just off. Like it wasn't meant to soothe me, it was meant to plant something. Months passed. Adam grew distant, but not in the dramatic, movie-style way. No shouting, no ghosting, just less eye contact, less conversation, less us. He started traveling more for work. "Client expansion," he said. I believed him. One night I couldn't sleep. I got up to get water, and I heard a buzz from his office. His tablet was left open, a FaceTime missed call from R. My stomach sank. I told myself it was Rachel, maybe something innocent. But the next day, I casually asked her if she'd called Adam. She paused. Just a second too long. Number why? I smiled, lied. Oh, I must have imagined it. I didn't imagine anything. That night I checked his tablet again. Password had changed. And that's when I knew. You don't change your passwords unless you're hiding something or someone. I didn't confront him, not yet. I started documenting dates, times, travel. The betrayal wasn't in the obvious places. There were no hotel receipts, no lipstick on collars, just tiny fractures in his routines, calls he stepped outside to take, sudden shifts in his scent, cologne I hadn't bought. Then, 2 weeks later, I saw it. A text, meant for someone else. It came through his laptop, synced by accident. "I wish she'd stop asking so many questions. I'll handle it soon." It was from Rachel. And that's when my world, my carefully curated, color-matched, structurally sound world, cracked. I didn't cry. I smiled. Because sometimes, when you see the truth laid out in front of you, it gives you something better than sadness. It gives you purpose.
Part 2. The silence between us. I didn't confront them. Not yet. That would have given them too much satisfaction. To see me broken, to watch me unravel. No, I had to be smarter. I had to become the version of me they didn't see coming. The day after the message from Rachel, I made breakfast like normal. scrambled eggs, toast with avocado, his favorite black coffee, the little rituals I kept alive like a fool clinging to tradition. Adam walked in, kissed my cheek like he hadn't betrayed me in whispers and texts, and told me he'd be late again. New client, lots of moving parts. I looked him dead in the eye and smiled. "That's okay," I said. "I've got a lot going on too." And I did. I started digging. Not into their messages. He'd changed all his passwords, but into patterns. Rachel's emergency drop-ins when Adam wasn't home. The way she'd ask if I needed help with anything at the house. How she always positioned herself as my savior, even before I realized I needed saving. I went to dinner with an old college friend, Lexi. She's in cybersecurity now. Over a glass of wine, I asked her hypothetically how someone might monitor a partner's devices without them knowing. She raised an eyebrow. "You okay, Nat?" "I'm not sure," I said honestly, "but I need to find out." Lexi didn't press. She handed me a small flash drive with software that could mirror a phone remotely, if I could get access, just once. The next morning, I told Adam I was taking the car in for a tune-up. He offered to drive me, phone in hand. I asked to make a call while he went to grab us coffees. The flash drive was in my pocket. 2 minutes later, I had access. That night, lying in bed beside him, I watched his messages come in on my tablet. Rachel. "She's suspicious. You're getting sloppy." Adam. "Relax. She's too soft to do anything." Rachel. "We need to move fast. I'm tired of pretending." That word, pretending, was a punch to the chest. How long had she been pretending? Through the miscarriages? Through every hug? Through every birthday she helped me plan? I stared at the screen for hours. Messages about how she deserved the life I had, how Adam said I was fragile, needy, not the same since the miscarriage that broke me while they got closer. And that's when I stopped crying. I started planning. I called my lawyer the next day. Quietly, discreetly, set up a private account, transferred what I could from the joint one without raising alarms. He told me what to document, what to prepare in case it all went to court. But my revenge wasn't going to be legal. It was going to be poetic. I invited Rachel over for brunch that weekend. I smiled. I hugged her. I told her how much I'd missed her. And then I gave her Adam's favorite mimosa, fresh orange juice, a little too much champagne, and a slice of poisoned kindness in every sip. She didn't see a thing. As we sat in the sun-drenched kitchen, she talked about her new consulting job. Lies, all of it. Her pupils dilated slightly. The alcohol was loosening her tongue. "I don't think Adam's happy," she said softly, swirling the glass. "I mean, you've changed, Nat. You've been distant." I almost laughed. She was testing the waters, fishing for a confession, a crack. But I gave her nothing. "I guess we've both changed," I said, sipping from my glass. "You know, sometimes I wonder if we really know anyone." She blinked, slowly. Then she smiled. That smile again. The same one she wore at our wedding, when she toasted to eternal love. The same one I'd see in photos and never quite recognize. That's when I decided. This wasn't going to be a dramatic breakup. It was going to be a slow unraveling, one thread at a time. Because when someone tries to erase your life, you don't just walk away. You rewrite the ending.
Part 3. Threads of a Lie. After Rachel left that day, I sat alone in the silence, sipping the last of my untouched mimosa. The glass felt cold in my hands, but not nearly as cold as the realization that I had spent the last decade of my life sleeping beside a stranger and calling a snake my sister. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed beside Adam, my body curled away from his, pretending I was okay, pretending I didn't know everything, pretending I hadn't seen the pictures he sent her, the promises he made, or the way he spoke about me like I was a burden. He kept touching me like nothing had changed. I kept flinching like everything had. The days blurred. I perfected the role of the unsuspecting wife, the loyal sister. And every day I gathered more texts, more evidence, more courage. I began journaling, keeping records of everything: the nights he was gone, the calls he took outside, the perfume that wasn't mine on his shirts. I labeled screenshots, backed them up in triplicate. It wasn't paranoia anymore, it was proof. What hurt the most wasn't even the affair. It was how easy it was for them to make me feel invisible. They stole my silence. Now I was going to make them hear me. That weekend, I planned a getaway for Adam and me. To reconnect, I told him. He barely looked up from his phone, probably texting her. We could use a little escape, I said. Just the two of us, like old times. He smiled, that empty, practiced smile. Sure, he said. Sounds good. I rented a cottage near the lake. Secluded, quiet, the kind of place where sound carries and secrets echo. He didn't even ask questions, didn't ask who booked it or why the car I rented was under my maiden name. On the drive, he talked about work. I nodded. He asked what I was thinking. I said nothing. But in my mind, I was rehearsing every word I'd planned. The confrontation was going to happen on my terms. That night, as we sat by the fire, I poured us both glasses of wine. He talked about the stars. I stared at the flames. Then I handed him the tablet. What's this? He asked, confused. Just something I thought you should see. He opened it. Screenshots, dozens, messages, photos, voice memos, all of it. For a moment, he didn't say anything, just blinked, once, twice. His fingers tightened on the glass. You went through my phone. No, I said calmly. I went through the truth. There's a difference. He started the usual script: denial, deflection, gaslighting. I let him talk. I wanted to see how far he'd take it, how many lies he thought I still believed in. You haven't been happy, he said eventually. We've been distant. And Rachel, she was there. She understood. I stood up slowly. She understood, I repeated. Understood what? How to slip into my life like it was hers. How to stab her own sister in the back and steal what she could never build. He stood too, defensive now, his voice rising. You think this is just my fault? You shut down after the miscarriage. You were gone, Nat. I tried. No, I said firmly. You didn't try. You escaped. Into her, into lies, into whatever fantasy made you feel less like a coward. His jaw clenched. There was a storm behind his eyes, but I didn't flinch. I'd weathered worse. I'd buried a child. I'd survived the slow death of trust. You want out? I said, voice trembling only slightly. Then take it. But know this, I'm not walking away quietly. You two don't get to rewrite history and call it love. He didn't speak. He couldn't. The next morning, I left early, leaving him at the cottage. I didn't tell him where I was going. I just left a note. Now you can be with her without lying about it. But know that what you destroyed will never be yours. When I got home, I filed the paperwork. Divorce, restraining orders, legal notices. I sent Rachel a single message. You can have him. You'll never have my forgiveness. No reply. She blocked me within minutes. Cowards always do. But the real blow hadn't landed yet. Because 2 weeks later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a nurse. There had been an accident. And in that moment, as the world stopped spinning, I realized my story wasn't over. It was about to break all over again. Part 4, the call that changed everything. The nurse's voice was gentle, clinical, too calm for what she was about to say. There's been an accident, she repeated. Your sister and your husband, Adam, they were brought in from a highway collision. I'm sorry, but your sister didn't make it. I stood frozen in the middle of my kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator suddenly deafening. The room spun. I clutched the counter like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to earth. Is he? I finally managed. He's stable, the nurse said. A few broken ribs, concussion. He's been asking for you? Asking for me. After everything, he had the audacity to ask for me. I hung up without another word. I don't remember driving to the hospital. I just remember white walls, the smell of antiseptic, and the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. The nurse guided me to his room like I was sleepwalking, and there he was. Adam, hooked up to machines, bandaged, pale, human, fragile. Not the monster I'd built in my head these past few weeks. Not the man who had ruined everything. He looked at me like I was a ghost, like he didn't deserve to see me. He was right. "I didn't call you," he croaked. "They said you did," I replied flatly. He shook his head, grimacing in pain. "I didn't want you to see me like this." "Like what?" I asked. "Broken? Helpless? Human?" He looked away, eyes brimming. "She's gone," he whispered. I didn't speak. There was nothing to say. He stared out the window, voice breaking. "She was driving. We were arguing. I told her I wanted to fix things with you, that I made a mistake." She took her eyes off the road for a second. I almost laughed, bitter, sharp, cold. "You told her you wanted to fix things," I repeated. "After everything, after her." "I was confused," he murmured. "No," I said, voice hard. "You were cruel. You were selfish. And now you want redemption because she paid the price for your choices?" He covered his face with one hand. "I don't know how to live with what happened." I leaned in closer. "Then maybe you finally understand how I felt when I found out about you two." I walked out without another word. I didn't cry, not then. I didn't cry at her funeral either. Everyone whispered. My mother sobbed into tissues, blaming fate, bad luck, just a terrible accident. But I knew better. It wasn't fate, it was consequence. Rachel was buried in a white coffin. She'd always loved white, said it made her feel pure, innocent. It never suited her. After the funeral, I found a letter at my door. No return address, I opened it. It was her handwriting. "Dear Natalie, if you're reading this, then something has gone wrong. I know you hate me. I don't blame you. I hate myself too. But I need you to know it wasn't supposed to happen like this. I never planned to love him. It started when you were in the hospital. I was scared. He was broken. We were both stupid, but we weren't malicious. Not at first. I never wanted to take your life. I just wanted a life of my own. But I lost myself somewhere in all the lies. I'm sorry, not for loving him, but for hurting you. You were always the strong one. I was always just following. If I don't get the chance to say it in person, I hope one day you find peace. You deserve it more than anyone I know. Rachel." I held the letter in shaking hands, and for the first time, I let the tears fall. Not for her, not for Adam, but for the girl I used to be, the girl who believed in forever. Part 5, Ghosts of the Living. I didn't hear from Adam for weeks, after the funeral, after the letter, after the silence. I thought maybe he'd finally understood what it meant to lose, to be left with ghosts. But then, one evening, just as the sky turned that deep violet that always reminded me of calm before a storm, I heard a knock on the door. I didn't need to look. I knew it was him. I opened the door slowly, already exhausted by whatever conversation waited on the other side. He looked better, physically at least. A cane supported his left side, his jaw had healed, but his eyes, still shattered. "I thought you hated me," he said quietly. "I do." He nodded. "I just wanted to talk. Say goodbye maybe, or not. I don't know." I let him in. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to hear his version. Maybe part of me was still hoping to bleed the rest of the hurt out. Or maybe I was just lonely enough to need someone who remembered the world before it broke. He sat at the kitchen table like he'd never left. That was the hardest part. The familiarity, the muscle memory of him in my home, our home, as if nothing had changed, but everything had. He ran his hand across the table's surface. I still see her sometimes, in dreams. We're on the road, she's laughing and I can't stop her from turning the wheel. I said nothing. He went on. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need to tell you something. She was pregnant." It hit me like a slap across the face. "She didn't know for sure," he added quickly. "She'd taken a test, hadn't told me yet. I found it in her bag afterward. My stomach turned. My sister, my husband, a child, another child that would never be born. I don't know why I told you, he said. Maybe because you're the only one who'd understand what that loss feels like. I looked at him, and in that moment, I saw someone who had destroyed everything and was now buried under the rubble, same as me. But that didn't make us equal. You told me once, I said slowly, that I was your compass, that without me, you'd lose yourself. He nodded. Well, I said, standing up, you were right. He stood too, as if hoping for something, a hug, a touch, a trace of the love we once had. But I only opened the door. Don't come back, I said. You don't belong here anymore. He hesitated, then walked past me, his cane tapping softly on the floor like a clock ticking down the end of something. When the door closed behind him, I didn't cry. I felt clean. I walked to the nursery. It still sat untouched. Pale green walls, empty crib, unopened packages of tiny onesies that would never be worn. I took a box from the closet and started packing it all away. It wasn't about forgetting, it was about releasing. Every folded blanket, every soft toy, a piece of hope that had once been mine. When I finished, I wrote a note and slipped it into the box. To whoever finds this one day, these things belong to a child I never met, a dream I once had, and the woman I used to be. Then I sealed it shut, and I breathed. Part 6, A Home Without Echoes. Weeks passed, then months. The seasons shifted with mechanical rhythm. Spring melted into summer. But inside me, everything remained cold. I didn't return to work. I didn't call my friends back. I deleted my social media accounts. I wanted silence, stillness, a world without reminders. For the first time in my life, I lived entirely alone. Not just in my house, but in my mind. There was freedom in that, and danger. I spent most mornings walking, endless streets, unfamiliar trails, places where no one knew me. I'd pass playgrounds filled with children, couples holding hands, families shouting over picnics. I was a ghost in their world. Sometimes I imagined walking straight into traffic, not because I wanted to die, but because I didn't want to feel anymore. The ache wasn't sharp anymore, it was dull, constant, like a wound that wouldn't scab over. You stop noticing the pain when it becomes the background noise of your life. But then something strange started happening. I began talking out loud, to Lily, not just in the nursery but everywhere, in the kitchen, on my walks, in bed before I slept. At first it was a whisper, then full conversations. I told her about the sunrise, about the cat that always followed me to the mailbox, about how I'd finally thrown out the mugs Adam and I collected from our vacations, how I no longer cried when I saw baby shoes in store windows. Sometimes I laughed while talking to her, and that scared me because part of me started to feel like she was listening. One evening, I lit a candle in the nursery, a ritual I hadn't done since the funeral. I sat in the rocking chair, wrapped in one of the blankets we bought for her, and I spoke to her as if she were real, right there in my arms. "I know you never got to see the world, baby girl," I whispered, "but I promise I'm trying to live enough for both of us." A breeze moved through the room and the candle flickered, and in that flicker I felt something, a shift, not forgiveness, not healing, just space. A sliver of light through a door I thought would stay shut forever. The next morning, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in almost a year, my college friend Rachel. She picked up on the first ring. "Is it really you?" she asked, her voice thick with emotion. "I think I'm ready to come back," I said. Slowly. We met for coffee. We didn't talk about Adam, or my sister, or the baby. We talked about books, about bad reality shows, about nothing and everything. For the first time, I laughed with someone other than a ghost. It was strange how pain could shrink, not disappear, but become something you carried in your pocket rather than your chest. A week later, I cleared out the guest room. I donated Sophie's old things. took down the pictures, removed every trace of her. It wasn't bitterness, it was necessary. This wasn't her home anymore, and it wasn't Adam's either. It was mine, the home I would rebuild, alone, for now, but whole in a way I hadn't felt since everything fell apart. Part 7. The Quiet After the Storm. The day I received the letter, the sky was grey, not stormy, just dull, like it couldn't decide whether to weep or hold itself together. It was from Adam, a plain white envelope, my name scrawled in familiar handwriting. For a moment, I just stared at it, heart thudding like a distant drum. I thought I'd burned every bridge, every memory, but ghosts find their way back. I opened it with trembling fingers. I know I have no right to reach out to you. I wouldn't blame you if you tore this letter up without reading a word, but I need to say this. I need you to know that I think about Lily every day. I think about you, about what I destroyed. Sophie left me 6 months ago, said she couldn't live with the guilt. Turns out we were both running from something neither of us understood. I lost everything, and I deserve to. I won't ask for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I do remember, not just the betrayal, but the good things too. The way you laughed when we danced in the kitchen, the way you held my hand at every ultrasound, the way you carried both of us through storms I never had the courage to face. You were always stronger than me. I folded the letter slowly, quietly. There were no tears, just silence. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel rage, just done. That was the closure I didn't know I needed. That night, I took Lily's blanket and walked to the nearby lake. The water was still, like glass. I stood there for a long time, letting the cool wind kiss my face. Then I whispered, "I forgive you." Not to Adam, not to Sophie, to myself. For staying too long, for breaking silently, for blaming myself, for surviving. And then I let go. I dropped the letter into the water, watched the ink bleed out, watched it sink. And as it disappeared into the dark, a weight lifted. In the weeks that followed, I didn't rebuild fast. Healing doesn't happen in tidy arcs. Some days I still ached, still stared at the empty crib and wondered who Lily might have become. But I started saying yes more. Yes to morning walks with Rachel, yes to therapy, yes to uncomfortable conversations and laughter that came from someplace real. I started writing again, not about pain, but about possibility. I even took a short trip, alone, to a small cottage by the sea. I watched the sunrise with a mug in hand, wrapped in a thick sweater, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel like a shell. I felt present. That was the word. Present. Not trapped in the past, not desperate for the future. Just here, with everything I'd lost and everything I still had. Some scars stay. They don't fade. They become part of the story. And that's okay, because I survived, not as the broken wife or the betrayed sister, but as me. And I finally believe that's enough.